Hello, everybody. Welcome to what I believe is episode 54 of the Very Fun Yarns podcast. My name is Tanya. I'm coming to you from Southeast Minnesota, where my family and I run a fruit farm that specializes in strawberries, Concord grapes, and naturally dyed yarn. So thanks so very much for coming back to the channel. If you are returning, and if you're new, welcome. So it has been a little while since I put out a regular sort of formatted podcast. So if you were with me in December, you know that I did a couple of Vlogmas episodes. And then maybe like a week and a half or so ago, I put up a organizing video. I went through and I decluttered my room here, and I kind of reorganized it just to kind of reset for the new year and to get some inspiration on some projects that I wanted to make. So here we are. I have a couple of finished objects, a couple that I don't actually have with me today. I've got some notes here. And so let's get started. So I think I mentioned, if you watched the organizing vlog that I put out, that I was going to go away on a knitting retreat last weekend. And I did do that. I had a lovely time with some friends, had lots of giggles. I did end up coming home a little early just because I wasn't feeling great, but I have recuperated a little bit and am starting to feel a little bit better. So I thought I would share some things with you today. I have a couple exciting new things. Well, one in particular, I have a new hat pattern that came out. So I want to tell you about that in case you want to get in on the introductory special offer for that one. But let's start with, I have a couple things that I made that I don't have with me. One is my Lassie sweater that I was working on the last time I came to you. And this is a sweater that I made for my son, Ian, who is a sophomore at college. And he has gone back now and has taken it with him. So I don't have it here to show you. However, he loves it. He really likes it. I was a little disappointed. I'm going to be putting up pictures here while I'm chatting, but the edging, it kind of had a different sort of collar to it, and the edging of where they called it a shawl collar, and it was sort of like that, but it was different. Anyway, where the shawl collar met the main body of the sweater, I wasn't really happy with how that looked. It looked a little too messy to me. And I tried a lot of different things, but I just could not figure out how to make it as perfect looking as I wanted it to. So after about 5 tries, I just kind of gave up and I did the best I could. And then when I wove in ends, I kind of made it a little bit better. I closed some holes and things that I didn't like so much. But he doesn't seem to notice. He really likes it. So I guess that's all that matters. But that being said, it was a pattern that I got out of a book. I think it was like Viking Knits or something like that. But of course it will be linked below. But the patterns, although they were lovely patterns, they were just written in a style that I found a bit more difficult. I would have liked a few more details to the pattern, as far as like where I'm picking up the stitches, how many, instead of just like, oh, pick up this many as you go around. Yeah. So anyway, that was finish number 1, a very big finish. I finished that one on New Year's Eve. So that was actually finished in 2024. But I have finished like 5 things, I think, since Christmas Day, I suppose. But I finished quite a few in the new year already that I started since Christmas and finished since Christmas. So the second one, I also don't have. Oh, wait, maybe I do. Hold on. These don't look super neat because my son left them up here and my cat has been laying on them. But this is a pair of cloud slippers. If you've been with me for a while, you remember this is a pattern I really love to make. It makes really nice, cozy slippers. Usually I make it with Lion brand Wool Ease, thick and quick. And then I have learned to hold another strand of like an 80-20, 75-25 sock weight yarn with it, because it just gives it a little bit more strength and durability as you wear it, because that Wool Ease Thick and Quick is a very loosely spun yarn. So it just wears a little bit better. But anyway, this looks like I got a little issue on the back of this one already. I don't know if I seamed it funny. So I will say that when I made the first one of these, I was sort of not really feeling the greatest. And I oopsed on the pattern. So how the pattern works is you're supposed to knit like, you start kind of on the bottom and you knit so many garter ridges, and then you do the top, and then you go back around and do the bottom, and you're supposed to seam it on the bottom. Well, I don't know, I wasn't paying great attention, and I forgot to do the garter things, and so I sort of made it this way and then around, and so I had to seam it in a different spot. And you can see here in the back, I have a little loosey-goosey spot there where I must have seamed it that it's coming out. So I will definitely take my, a little extra yarn, and I'm going to sew that up for my son so they last a little bit longer. I actually think he forgot he left these up here in this room. My guess is he came up here to pet one of the cats and then forgot about them. So it's been kind of cold in the house, and he also likes to go downstairs to do, we have an unfinished basement. And so sometimes the kids go down there because there's a big table down there and they'll play computer games or whatever. But I haven't seen him down there recently because it's been kind of cold. It's not as heated as well, so it gets a little chilly down there. So those were the first two things that I finished. And then I finished my sample for my newest hat design, and that is called the Georgie Hat. And it is a kind of a broken rib-ish sort of pattern. But it also looks, I have a pom-pom on the top of it. It also looks kind of cool if you turn it inside out. Now, of course, my pom-pom's there, but you see it's just a little different kind of ribbing on the inside. So this is a pattern you can use either way. It is a DK weight pattern. So you can get the gauge with a single strand of DK. You could get it with 2 fingering, or maybe like a fingering and like a sock yarn held with like a suri or something fluffy like that. Yeah, and it is, let me see if I can put it on. I have better pictures. I think I'm going to not put it on because I have better pictures I can just put in, and I'm going to mess up the microphone and anything. But so yeah, the Georgie Hat. This is the second pattern in my Heartland hat collection, which is a collection of patterns. There will be 3 in total. I have one more that I finished, which is the third one that should hopefully be coming out in the not so distant future once it gets tested. But these patterns were based off of a CBC Canada Broadcasting Company series called Heartland, and it's on Netflix, and I'm not sure where else it has been on, but it's just sort of a family-friendly series about horses and a girl who trains horses and whatnot. So this hat was a hat that was inspired by one that the character Georgie was wearing in one of the earlier to mid seasons. I don't remember exactly. I'm thinking it's like maybe like season 7 to 9, something like that. I can't remember exactly, but yeah. And you can't see it because I have the pom-pom on, but the decreases are really cool. I do have a picture of those, and I will put that on here, but that is the hardest thing about hat pattern designing, I will say, is when you have a pattern and you have to make the decreases look like you don't want to disrupt the pattern, but you also want to decrease in a smooth way. So that is usually, I've gotten smarter now that I have designed 3 patterns. I usually figure out what my stitch pattern is, and then I do a little sample to figure, and it's a math, to figure out how I'm going to do the decreases before I cast on my first actual full hat. Because otherwise you get there, and if it's just trial and error, or I learned with, I don't remember if it was this hat, might have been this hat. I learned the hard way that I didn't do the math, and so I didn't cast on the right number of stitches to make it divisible by, a certain number in order to do the decreases. So yeah, live and learn. But if you are interested in the Georgie hat pattern, it is available on Ravelry right now, and it will be 20% off with the code Georgie20. And it was supposed to be through January 19th, which is this next Sunday, because I published it on the 5th. But because I am putting out this episode a little bit later, it will go for one more week than that, through Sunday, January 26th. So if you watch this in the next week or so, you can still get in on that sale. Yeah, so that'll give you just a little bit of a discount as you help me in the beginning of the pattern launch, I guess you could say. So that's the Georgie hat. Oh, the next one that I made, I actually cast on and finished at my knitting retreat. Well, maybe I cast it on the night before. There's something kind of challenging about casting on a project when you're at a knitting retreat. I just feel like you're all chatting. It's really easy to count wrong and you get the pattern set. So I think I did cast these on beforehand. But this is a pair of chunky fingerless mittens. And this was made for one of my son's dance friends. She saw his fingerless mittens and was asked if I could make some for her. Now, I don't normally just make things for anybody, but this young girl has been dancing with my son since he was probably 3 or 4. And they're very good friends. And she's actually come out and worked at our farm a couple times. So I knew her a little bit better. And I know her family and her mom. So she wanted purple and she didn't want wool because wool made her itchy. She tried on Elliot's mittens and decided they just made her feel too itchy. So I had to kind of hunt for some yarn. Let me show you. I think I have it down here. Yeah, I do. So I ended up going to Joann's, as one does, and I got this huge. I wanted it to be, okay, I fully admit that I'm a bit of a wool snob. I do prefer knitting with wool yarn, but there are some newer blends of acrylic that are coming out that are nice to feel. They have a good feel to them when you're knitting, and I'm totally not opposed to them. But I knew if I was going to be making these as a gift for somebody, I definitely wanted to enjoy the process. So, I went through the store and I was kind of feeling all the options, looking for purple. So this is what I came up with. This is a Karen Colorama Halo, perfect phasing, and it's sort of like a gradient of sorts. But so I pulled from the middle, and her mitts were totally purple. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this. I got to check how much yardage it is, but I'm thinking maybe I'll make like a small cowl or something like that I can donate to kind of use up the rest. But I thought it was pleasant yarn. I think it's actually listed as bulky, but I knit the mitts on a US 5 because I think mitts should be a little tighter, and I'm a loose knitter, so it just kind of all went together. But I morphed together I'm going to throw this down here, 2 different patterns. I did my go-to fingerless mittens, which I have used before. That is a fingering weight pattern. So I used the patterning on that as far as I think it's like a 3x2 rib. It is a free pattern, so it's fine that I'm telling you the ribbing and whatnot. But I used the patterning of that, but I used the numbers from Susan B. Anderson's Waiting for Winter Mittens, which is a worsted weight pattern. And I think for her, I made the smallest size. I think it was the smallest size, the smallest adult size. That pattern comes in both children and adult, and I was using the adult version because she's a little bit smaller hands than Elliot, and also the weight of the yarn was slightly thicker, so I knew it would probably be a little bit bigger. The nice thing I like about the My Go-To Fingerless Mittens pattern, I think it's by Donna Kimball. I'm right. I don't know. I'll of course link it below. But is that it is a ribbing, and the whole mitten is ribbing, and so it's so forgiving. If it's great for gifts because if you don't know what size hand your recipient has exactly, it's very forgiving as far as how big or how little it will scrunch in or stretch. And it is just a one size kind of fits most pattern. So I have found when I do that pattern, I generally make it a bit longer in the wrist from where you cast on to where you start making your thumb gusset. I think I generally do 4 inches instead of 3, just because it gives a little more warmth and you can kind of tuck that in under your sweatshirt or your jacket or whatever it is you're wearing. So I finished those. And then I finished 2 more things. Let's show you this one first. This is my newest hat design. So this is a bit of a lace pattern. And it starts with kind of an unusual ribbing at the bottom. but I wanted to do this sort of ribbing because it matched the patterning. I didn't want to do I wanted this is kind of hard to show you here, but I wanted the knit stitches to flow into the design. So that's what I did there. So this one I believe I'm going to be calling the Rodeo Sweetheart hat. And this is a hat inspired by Jade from the Heartland series. If you haven't watched that series, Jade is a young woman who ends up being a bronc rider in the rodeo circuit. And so this hat was inspired from her. Now, this was my first cast on. This is quite large. I thought this, so I don't always pay attention. I guess what my gauge is going to be. I sort of know, but every pattern is a little bit different on how it reacts to the stitches and whatnot. So I thought this would probably be my medium size, but I think this one is going to be my large size. There's the top. Isn't that really beautiful how the kind of the top flows in there? But so this one's slightly big for me, but I'll put this on. Let's see if I can do this without. And so you can see it's kind of cute. If you really want that slouchy feel to it, you could make a little bit larger size and you'll get this really slouchy kind of feel. But I think for me, what I was really intending with this pattern is that it would be more of a fitted beanie or toque kind of hat. What I try to do in my hat patterns now, the last two, I have tried really hard to do this as I've learned more, is that I try to tell you how many inches, if you meet the same row gauge as I do, how many inches that the decreases are going to take. So that way you can change the height of it if you want really easily. You can know that, if I want my hat to be 9 inches tall, then I need to stop 2 inches before I start so knit for 7 inches before I do my decreases, which will, with 2 inches, will give me that 9-inch hat. So I'm pretty sure this one will be the large size, but yeah, it has a beautiful lace pattern when you stretch it on. And that's the other thing. This, when it's stretched, it looks even more beautiful, I think. So I kind of want to make the gauge in a way that, for somebody, I'm thinking if you knit this pattern, they generally recommend 2 to 3 inches of negative ease when you do a hat pattern. So if your head is 21 inches, you want to knit the pattern that gives you the my screen is doing weird things. The pattern that gives you 18 inches. So let me start that again. My recording was doing some weird things. What I was starting to say is that generally they say 2 to 3 inches of negative ease when you pick a pattern size. So if your pattern says the finished circumference of the hat will be 19 inches, that means that it will fit a head size of 21 to 22 inches. Well, I think that this pattern, because how it looks so much, you get to see so much of the pattern when it stretches, I am going to say that probably you want to go towards more of a 3-inch negative ease because you'll get to see the beauty of the pattern a bit more. So if you have a 19-inch hat circumference when it's finished, then that will fit somebody who has like a 22-inch circumference noggin. So yeah, so I'm pretty sure this will be the large size. So what I need to do with this yet is I need to, oh, and I didn't even tell you, this is knit in a Berry Fun Yarns. I'm holding this, it's a DK weight pattern, but I'm holding 2 fingering strands double. And I knit this in Berry Tough Sock, which is my 80-20 fingering base, with 2 strands held together. But you could get the same gauge easily probably with a DK weight or a light worsted. And I also didn't tell you this one was knit out of Grassy Knoll, which is a colorway. And it is on the All-Star DK Berry Fun Yarns base. So if you like these colors, they are both in the shop. This one is, I think, called Redwood Single Lady. There are some in the shop yet. Okay, so back to the timeline for the Rodeo Sweetheart hat. I believe that it will take me probably just one morning of work at my desk to figure out the math involved with the different sizes and to write up the pattern. So I will be calling for test knitters soon. I always reach out first to past test knitters that I have. And then if I don't get enough, then I will, maybe send a call out on Instagram or somewhere else. But if you ever are interested in test knitting one of my designs and you see it on here, please just send me a message at berryfunyarns@gmail.com. I'd love to have your input and see what you think. I'm pretty low key right now. I don't have a bazillion followers that I need to have a Google Doc with applications for testers, but I generally like to have between 3 and 5 testers for one of my designs, just to kind of get an assortment of sizes and kind of make sure that I wrote the pattern well. And I do, because I have such great, wonderful, amazing testers in that pool already, I often get to that 3 to 5 without having to reach out, but always looking for new testers. So feel free to reach out. So that should come out soon in the testing area. And I knit that hat in like 4 days. So it's pretty fast to knit if you spend some time with it. So I would estimate if I start, I would say by like late February, early March, hopefully that one will come out. We'll kind of see how fast my test group is, but I would like that to come out yet before spring. So that is that. And then the last finished object I have is my scrappy Emma's yarn socks. So if you followed me during the Vlogmas episodes, you will see that I just made my own, my own advent countdown with Emma's yarns, and I was using that to make a sweet shop blanket. So what happened then is I would make one of my sweet shop squares, and only half of the square is out of the colored yarn, and then the other half is out of like a solid main color yarn. Mine is called linen, and it's a Berry Fun Yarns colorway. So then I still had like 12 or 13 grams of this 20-gram mini left. So I divided it up and I created these socks. So they are the same. What I ended up doing is I did the same color scheme on the leg for both of them. Same for the heel flap and gusset. And then when I started to go back in the round after I was done with that, turning the heel, when I went to the gusset stitches, these two colors I only used once in the sock. Because the rows are so long, I was afraid that I might not have enough to do both socks if I wanted to use them twice. So those two sections in the middle are single, but then what I did is, if you can see, if I hold it this way, I repeated the colors going in the opposite direction. So these two are the same, these two are the same, these two are the same, and so on. And then I ended the toe with what I used for the cuff. So that was kind of how I did it. And in general, I did 10 rounds, 15 rounds, 10 rounds, 15 rounds. So I had a big chunk and a smaller chunk. I will say it was a pain in the tuchus to weave in all these ends. This sort of thing is not for somebody who hates weaving in ends. I'm just going to turn it over to show you my ends. I think I had between 40 and 50 ends, but I just kind of wove them in like that. And I think I did a pretty good job. This side is, I kind of just go up and down and up again. The Crazy Sock Lady, she has, you probably know her. She's well known. She has a YouTube channel, and I believe she has a tutorial on how she weaves in her ends. And I just kind of follow that for the most part. But I like them. I did much better weaving in the ends on this scrappy pair than I have on previous scrappy pairs. So that is good. I have not worn these yet. In the future, though, I think I would just like to knit a chunk, and when it runs out, and then the next one, or maybe do every other row with a couple colors. When one runs out, add in a second one, just because it's just too much fussing to have that many ends. I didn't really enjoy that a ton. So yeah, those are my scrappy socks. And then moving on to works in progress. I'm kind of speeding along here because I'm on a bit of a schedule. I have to go pick up my son from school in about 15 minutes here. So I don't want to dally too long, but I only actually have 3 more whips. I have been doing really good with trying to keep the number of projects I have on the needles down. And in fact, it's making me feel like it's something I can control in life, right? Like I have a lot still going on with my health stuff and trying to figure things out. And life is kind of overwhelming, even if you don't have that going on. So for me, this has been a really good way of doing that. So I finished the Rodeo Sweetheart hat and my scrappy socks actually just yesterday. I plan to finish one more pair of socks here, and then I am going to cast on another pair of socks, and I'm going to pick out a new sweater for myself because I don't really have much on the needles. I have this pair of socks, and I have one new project I'm going to show you, a sweater project that I'm going to just finish to donate. Then I have like 3 or 4 blankets, so I don't really have a lot of different projects besides blankets. I'm going to show you one blanket today, but probably in a future episode it will be heavy with the blankets. But oops, I'm on a mission here. I was just going to start knitting. So these are my crunkled socks. This is a pattern by Kay Jones from the Bakery Bears. This is sock number 2. I've already finished the first one. And this is a yarn. This is a BFL Fingering base from Very Fun Yarns. And yeah, so I'm on the second one. I just finished all of the gusset decreases, so I don't have too much more to go. I hold them up next to each other. I have that much more to go. So hopefully it won't take me too much longer, a couple days. I try to knit on this one every day. The BFL yarn that I have, I dye on, is a lovely BFL yarn. Lately, though, I've just not been in the mood to knit on BFL. It feels not soft enough to me, and that's just maybe I'm needing more of the soft, tactile experience of like a merino or a cashmere or something. So we all kind of go through phases, don't we? Sometimes we really enjoy certain types of yarn or certain types of projects or things like that. And I think that's okay. I think we should just go with the flow. It doesn't mean that I won't ever knit BFL socks again, but right now I'm just not really in the mood. So I will finish those. It's in my Whimsy Stitches Forest Foxy bag. And then just yesterday evening, the last 2 are new cast-ons since I've come to you last. This is another pair of my go-to fingerless mitts. So that pattern is a favorite of my kiddos to wear. So I haven't gotten very far. I just cast these on yesterday when I finished my other 2 projects. It's very short. It's beautiful yarn though. You can see it. And this is knit with Lavender Loon. I think it's called Man in the Moon. And I believe it's an 85-15, and I think it was the full skein colorway that came with the Winter Solstice kit that I knit this blanket out of. So I am going to make those for my son Ian. Right before he went back to school, I had already repaired his fingerless mittens, and he found another hole in them. So he asked if I could make him another pair, and he picked out this yarn when he was still home. He liked the dark blue, and he doesn't mind hand washing. I always feel like the softer yarns do so much better, the 85-15 or the, if they have cashmere or something in, they do so much better being hand washed. So I'm working on those. So I've got those 2 little projects on the go. And then the last one, let me see if I can find it. Is it in this one? I've got 2 big blankets. Whoop, I'm stuck on my chair down here. Let's see if I can pull this out. Yep, this is it. So I just cast this on. This was a primary thing I was working on at the retreat. This is the Bits and Bobs blanket by Kay Jones of the Bakery Bears. I love me some Kay Jones patterns. But isn't that lovely? So this is a temperature blanket. And I actually cast on a little bit more than she recommended because I wanted it to be slightly wider. I have made for my 2 oldest children when they graduated from high school and went to college. I made a blanket for them to take with. And I've learned the first 2 I made in Superwash Wool of the Andes, which is a lovely yarn. It's worsted weight. But it seems, even though it's superwash, it seems to felt a lot faster than a lot of other yarns. And so I really wanted, so now the boys, they're really good about it. They'll wash it in the washer, but they'll lay it flat to dry. But in a college dorm room, it's not really the most convenient. So I picked a different yarn this time. I am doing Knit Picks Stroll Fingering, held with an undyed of the yarn that I used to make my Berry Tough sock base. And so what I'm doing, it's a temperature blanket because it is based off of my son's first year of life, starting with the day he was born. I go back and I write down the temperatures for that year. And then the first time I made a blanket, I was trying really hard to get through all 365 days. But now I kind of knit until it's the size I want. However many days get into the blanket, that's how many days I do. But I knit, for his, I'm knitting one across and one back so that I always switch my colors on this side of the blanket. And there are still some, that's the bummer thing about temperature blankets, I feel like, is you're always switching yarn. I mean, there are some chunks where they're similar, the colors are the same, but I have woven in some of them. So when it gets to be like too fringy on the end, I'll weave them in. But I really like how it's turning out. It's going to be all blues and greens, and it's not brioche. And I don't know, someone thought maybe it was fisherman's rib, but it's not really that. I don't think it is. She didn't call it that. But you knit, not to give away the secret sauce of the pattern, but what makes it look like this is that you knit in the stitch below. You don't knit in this one in a certain pattern across. So yeah, lovely pattern. I always love the Bakery Bear patterns. So that is that. And I think that's it. That's all my whips that I'm going to show you. I did work on my crochet, what is it called? Advent blanket a little bit. It's the Lucienne Crochet. I can't remember. It'll be listed below a little bit, but I haven't, I thought I'd wait to show you that when I do more of a blanket episode. But for now, I think I'm going to sign off and just sort of, I'll see you in a couple weeks. I don't have any huge plans going on in the next couple weeks. I might. We'll see how the world goes. But I have some more tests on February 3rd, so I may try to get in a podcast before then if I'm feeling up to it, or you may not see me until after then. But I'm here and I'm making, and I hope that you are doing the same. If you have any questions about any of the patterns and things, I do always post all that information for my projects below with links to the project pages in Ravelry. I try to link makers and things like that as well. So thank you again for stopping by, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.